Thank you for joining us today on Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, filling in for Tammy Schaefer, your regular on-air producer. This week, our focus is on women in business. We will talk with women who make a difference in business, as well as women's integral and sometimes unique roles in the workplace. Today, we are connecting with Sue Kenfield, President and CEO of See It Thrive. Welcome, Sue. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So I got a chance to talk with Sue over the phone a couple days ago, and let's talk specifically about See It Thrive. Tell us exactly what that is.
So See It Thrive is my consulting business, and it's really focused on addressing some of the dysfunctional dynamics that go on in the workplace. So powering up success while driving down drama and dysfunction. So I do a lot of work with teams. I do a lot of work with leaders, really helping people get out of that mode of negatively impacting their own success and being able to have individual and organizational successes.
I love that. So drive down drama.
Yes, drive down drama and dysfunction.
So do you mind elaborating on that one? I feel like that should be everyone's motto in their lives.
Well, yeah, we're seeing a little bit of drama and dysfunction going on in our society right now. It really is a matter of helping people understand what is appropriate in terms of how they present themselves, how they interact with other people, how they communicate, so that they can enjoy more of the success that they want. So I specialize in emotional and behavioral intelligence work. And sometimes that's an oxymoron, emotionally intelligent. We're not seeing it modeled all that well these days. So
I would agree with that.
Yeah. And there's, increasing levels of permissibility for things that back in my day when I was younger in my career, or my mother's, you would never see in the workplace. But I think through social media and the internet, it's opened a door for some of the things that, adults and young people do that really hamper their success, and leaders who get derailed by that too.
Absolutely. So I love that you're powering up success. And do you focus more on women, or is this an across the board for your consulting?
It is across the board. I've been doing a lot of work with women lately. And a lot of women in male-dominated industries, because there are certain challenges there that you may not face in more balanced industries. And those frustrations and stresses can really get in the way of women being able to advance in those industries as well.
Absolutely. Can we cite a specific limit? Yeah.
In terms of
what's one of the things that hold women back sometimes in getting ahead?
I would say their ability to speak up for themselves. Yeah. And when you're in a male-dominated industry, that can be pretty intimidating, whether that's manufacturing or construction. You don't always know how well that's going to be received, and that also is influenced by the quality of your leadership too. And so that's one thing, is women not being able to speak up for themselves, and sometimes not knowing how to navigate some of the obstacles that they run into, and do that in a way that's not going to make them have a reputation that they're not interested in having. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I see what you're saying. So let's say, for example, someone was going to ask for a raise. So obviously, in some cases, I from what I understand, women have a hard time negotiating. That's not something we necessarily bring to the table right away after getting a job.
Right.
Is the negotiation part. How would you walk someone through that?
Well, first of all, you have to be strategic about that. You have to be able to make it easy for your employer to say, yes, I see that you deserve to have this raise. So being able to objectively look at your performance, and that's a competency that not everybody is really good at, is can you look clearly at yourself without attaching any blame and shaming yourself for things that maybe you're not doing well.
Right.
The more that you can have that honest conversation with yourself, the easier it's going to be for you to address those things. It's really just part of the life journey. It's like taking a test in a way. You know the things that you struggle with, and you get that feedback when you take a test. If you can look at that as just information, okay, good, here's where I need to spend some more time. So number one, being able to understand where your performance deserves to have a raise, or are you just asking for a raise because you feel entitled to it?
Those are great reflection questions. Yeah, absolutely. I guess that's something I might need to ask my boss about. So one of the things that you specialize in is the transition to leadership. Right. So setting an environment for young women to network is something that you are focusing on.
Well, women in general, you
Right.
know, I think young women probably need some more help with that because the way that they network is different than someone who's in my generation or, you know, the Gen X generation.
Right.
Social media drives so much of that networking that so much of it happens in a virtual world.
Right.
That I don't know if young women have figured out how do you do that in a face-to-face, because that's still an important skill set.
It really is. Yeah, I've been to several, you know, networking events, and I always feel like a nerd a little bit. Like, how do I approach somebody? What do I say to them? Mm-hmm. You know, you can't just walk up and be like, "Hi."
Well, you can
be my friend.
well, the be my friend might take a little while, but because they're so driven by technology and communicating through a screen.
Yeah.
You know, that eye-to-eye contact, feeling confident and comfortable in the way that they present themselves. Being able to have a nice firm handshake instead of, you know, something that's like, where's the other person on the other end of that? I used to teach women, you know, how to have a good firm handshake, because you want to know there's someone on the other side of that.
Exactly.
And also, you know, how to deal with some of the nervousness. You know, it's really a confidence issue, and then understanding what some things are that you can talk to people about rather than just asking people, well, what do you do? Because that's such a typical thing that you hear at networking.
Absolutely. So, I mean, what do you feel about fake it till you make it? Do you have any thoughts on that? That's kind of been my motto for a long time.
You know, I think you have to do whatever you need to do to buoy yourself up to get through that until it becomes more of a habit, because you can't fake it to make it forever.
Right.
Because eventually you're going to burn out on that, and it doesn't seem genuine if it goes beyond that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. We are here with Sue Kenfield, president and founder of See It Thrive. We're going to take a quick break here on Connect and Collaborate, and when we come back, we'll talk more on women in business. Please stay with us at cobrt.com/live. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today on Connect and Collaborate. We have Sue Kenfield. I'm Alex Hopkins today, and Sue is the president and founder of See It Thrive. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So we were talking about the transition to leadership, and we were talking about your focus on mentoring millennial women. One of the things that I got to talk to you about on our phone call was how you show up matters.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you don't mind delving into that for me.
Not at all. You know, it's presence. It's, you know, what your physical appearance looks like and what your attitude looks like.
Right.
And so if you present yourself in the manner that you want to be perceived, it's a lot easier to get the perception that you want. And I think because we face a lot of just different things in our society with different behavior standards and dress codes and whatnot.
Right.
As a woman in business, it's really important to be mindful of what your presence says about you, because people see you before they hear from you. And unfortunately, as humans, we tend to be somewhat judgmental. And so people are making judgments about you based on how you show up that way. And then what comes out of your mouth?
Right.
You know, do you sound confident? Do you sound like you know what you're talking about? Do you have an attitude of entitlement, which is unfortunately what we hear a lot about for millennials?
Yeah.
And that's not unique to women.
I'm going to take a stand and say that's not fair.
Well, and trust me, I know a lot of millennials, and I tend to agree with you. It's a generalization that I think is unfortunate, because it tends to lead before the millennial shows up, and so people have that perception in their mind about what a millennial is going to be like. But I think when you're mindful of how you show up, you have the ability to now influence what people perceive of you, and that's a huge issue in your success in the workplace.
Right.
How you're perceived, and we're not always the best at seeing what we actually present, because we're in the forest. People who are outside the forest can probably tell us better, you know, here's how you're being perceived, or here's how I perceive you. And we don't tend to ask for that feedback. So the more you can be focused on that and what it looks like for you, and what fits in the industry that you're in, what fits in the culture of the organization that you work for, that's also important. And I think for millennial women and millennials in general, because there's that perception out there that tends to arrive before you do,
right?
Making sure that you can let people know that you're not there to dictate how the employer ought to treat you, that you're interested in understanding what the organization needs from you, and also be able to ask for the things that you'd like to have. But until you earn your way into making demands, I think a lot of employers are nervous about millennials because, there is a talent gap in our state, and if they feel like they can't put some expectations on millennials, because then they'll leave, because there's this idea that millennials don't want to have any expectations of them either.
Right.
Now, maybe you can speak to that.
Well, and I actually would love to speak to that. One of the things that I've been seeing changing across many industries and across the board is this idea of working from home, right? So that's something I feel like my parents, baby boomers, were their generation. They always went to work every day, 9 to 5, right? There wasn't a whole lot of asking for time off. Americans are known as not taking their vacation time when needed. And so one of the things I think that the millennial generation is looking for is that time to be able to work from home, to be a better parent, to be, I can do both.
Right.
I can get all of my work done at home and be productive at home, as well as also trying to raise a family and get my vacation time in order. I can do this anywhere from the road. Lots of work is on the internet these days.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and according to Gallup, flexibility is one of the main concerns and issues for women in the workplace, because they do have a variety of roles that they have to meet. And if you're a mom, there's that in general. And I believe that millennials want to have that flexibility as well. And that's great. And if you can build that in without it being disruptive to your organization or your culture, as an employer, I think that's something that's important to be mindful of, because you do get the best performance then from people. And so I think reframing it in an employer's mind, rather than it being an exception for millennials, it's like it's just a paradigm shift.
Right.
As things go, you have to sort of change things up a little bit.
Exactly. And it also shouldn't be an expectation from our point of view either, going into a role. I think we need to both change our mindsets a little bit when it comes to that. One of the other things that we talked about were behavior standards. So, I know that we mentioned emailing was one of the things that we talked about, and I will email all day long. As soon as I get an email, I take a time to write back and then go on with my other work. And I know that a lot of people in Gen Y and people that didn't grow up necessarily with email in their lives will take chunks out of their day to do emails. Maybe 3 times a day they'll answer emails, whereas I'm on it all day long.
Well, and a lot of that is influenced by what you're doing. Behavior standards, I think, in our society have changed dramatically.
Yes.
And, it goes back to being mindful of how you present yourself, because employers are dealing with all sorts of different behaviors that they never in their wildest dreams would have imagined having to deal with. And that's the drama and dysfunction that I deal with, and helping leaders navigate that dysfunctional human dynamic. But the emailing and the social media, depending on what you're doing for your work, you've got to modify that. And if you're working on a big project, having your phone pinging constantly, and there's kind of an expectation out there that you are responsive and that you will respond.
Right.
But it's perfectly okay when those times you need to minimize interruptions and distractions. That you turn off your notifier on your phone or your computer, and not get distracted by all those emails coming in that I know for me, oftentimes they're not critical.
Right.
I can set aside time later on to respond to those, and I can keep an eye out for the ones that are really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as behavior standards are concerned, I'm going to touch on a little bit of a touchy topic with you. One of the trends that we saw this last week was the hashtag #MeToo. That was going around. And I think that's something that has impacted a lot of women. In the Harvey Weinstein scandal, I think is that something that you coach on or can touch on from a perspective of how we deal with that?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, this was kept under wraps for years, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's really interesting to watch. I think it's almost like it's ripped the Band-Aid off for a lot of women who've gone through, sexual harassment or sexual discrimination.
Yeah.
Depending on the severity and the degree of that, it sort of wakes up, some wounds. And, for me, memories that I have from early on in my career and, how I just kind of pushed through that. Women, there will always be people who want to act like Harvey Weinstein or anybody, hopefully not to that degree.
Right.
And helping women navigate, again, some of the challenges that they face in the workplace so that they can maintain their strength, they can maintain their confidence, and they can set clear boundaries in an appropriate way. And, it's sad to see how long so many people stayed silent about that. And I tend to, look at where's the silver lining.
Right.
And that's certainly not to minimize anything that anybody went through.
Sometimes you have to.
But what I see happening now, because of this, because it's gotten so much press, is that women are now empowered to be able to speak up if something inappropriate is happening, and hopefully they will be heard, and organizations will listen a little harder moving forward than maybe they have in the past. It's a touchy issue for HR departments. It's a touchy issue for organizations. But my hope is that because it's received such international press, and so many women are coming forward and sharing what has happened, I don't want to see women go back into a victim mindset, but to understand, well, great, now how does this help women maybe have a stronger voice, feel more confident being able to speak, not just about things like this, but to be able to speak up in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, I think it was definitely a uniting factor for a lot of women.
And a lot of men. I think it woke up a lot of men too. Yeah. Having them understand, it doesn't have to be to the degree that Harvey Weinstein did it. Right. But being mindful of comments that you might make just as a guy. I mean, let's face it, guys are guys, gals are gals, and sometimes things come out wrong.
Absolutely.
Being mindful of that and being able to course correct before it gets into something that it doesn't need to be.
Absolutely. So we have just a couple minutes here. How can we find you? How do we get in touch with See It Thrive?
Yeah, so my website is seeitthrive.com, and you can go on there and contact me. My contact information is there. Yeah. My email is sue@seeitthrive. I'm looking at doing some work with women in the new year, bringing generations together to work on some of these common issues, because I don't care how old you are or how young you are. Yeah. There's still some common challenges that women face in the workplace, and I'm looking forward to bringing those generations together to support each other and network and grow.
I think that's lovely. Thank you so much, Sue. It has been great having you on board. And I really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to join us for Women in Business on Connect and Collaborate this week. So remember to visit Sue at seeitthrive.com, and be sure to visit us at cobrt.com/live. We are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with Kristen Blessman, continuing on our theme of women in business. Thank you so much. Have a great day, Sue.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye. Hi, this is Alex Hopkins on Connect and Collaborate. Today we have Kristen Blessman, who is the president and CEO of the Women's Chamber of Commerce for Denver. Yes, Colorado.
Yeah.
Excuse me, the whole state.
Yeah.
As well as the Women's Leadership Foundation. Thank you so much for being here. And let's jump off right into what the Colorado Chamber has going on. Colorado Women's Chamber has going on.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Alex. I appreciate being here and being a voice for women in business in our community. So thanks for giving us the opportunity.
Absolutely.
What's going on at the Colorado Women's Chamber? Well, I am relatively new to the Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce. I started in January, so it's been almost a year. And I was really brought on to kind of take the chamber to the next level. And in looking at that, trying to figure out, what is the value for creating a community of women? I think that a lot of chambers of commerce used to be put in place to create networking opportunities, right? But with the start of social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Colorado's just a really friendly community. You can email anyone and they'll generally meet with you. I think that the chambers that I've seen be successful, they're ones that are thinking kind of outside of the box for why you need a chamber of commerce. And so one of the things that I quickly began to realize and have known all along is being a part of a community of really professional, successful, empowering, and inspiring women has personally helped me so much in my career. And I know so many women that feel that same way. Yes. So what we're really trying to do is create opportunities at the chamber where women can organically build relationships with each other. So it's not just about handing out a card and saying, here, this is my company and this is what I do. But no, let's get to know each other and figure out how we can help each other in business and in life, because for women, they all sort of mold together.
Exactly.
So we've been busy doing that, creating programs where you can build relationships, but also creating programs that teach us more about growing our business and growing our career and how we uniquely do that as women.
Fantastic. I love that so much. So recently you had a State of Women in Business, State of the State type of, it was an inaugural event.
Yes.
So when was that?
So that was in September.
Okay.
And it was our first State of Women in Business event. And I think it was a first for our city. I haven't seen anything like it before.
No.
Donna Lynn, our Lieutenant Governor, kicked it off for us. We had a panel of amazing women. And Patty Silverstein, she's an economic development expert, did a data presentation for us.
Oh, cool.
And so we got to learn some interesting tidbits about how we really are doing in business. And this was local to Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our listeners love that because they are local to Colorado as well.
Great.
So one that you mentioned, we are 47th in the nation on getting women on boards.
Yeah, so there's a national movement going on right now to get more women on publicly traded boards, because it's really important. It's important for our foundation at the chamber to get women into the highest levels of leadership. And we really believe that being on a publicly traded board is that, highest level. That in government is pretty much as high as you can go. Right. But Colorado ranks 47th in that national effort. And so we really have some work to do as a state to get more women on boards of directors. And there's a lot of amazing companies doing things to change that, right? So we have Red Robin is doing some great work to get more women on their boards. I don't know if you had Denny in here to talk about that. DeVita's doing great work. Newmont Mining, QEP. There's a lot of CEOs locally that have signed on to help with that effort. So we're fortunate to have that. We have an event coming up on November 15th with a panel of experts downtown that are going to address really what needs to be done and some ideas and ways that they're doing it within their organizations to encourage that growth. And it's not all companies not wanting it.
Right.
It's also women not necessarily going for those, top roles of CEO or, do I want the hassle of, adding one more thing to my plate? And so it's just as important for women to jump into those roles to show other women that it can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. So the November 15th event, where can I find the information on that?
You can find that on our website at cwcc.org. All of our events are on our website.
Fantastic. Tell me about some of these other statistics that you found out.
Right.
Yeah.
So we found out that the wage gap, of course, still exists.
Yes, weird.
Yeah, but it is getting better.
Good.
So census information shows that it's improved in recent years.
Nice.
But what was surprising about the data that Patty presented was that the wage gap is very large in professions dominated and industries dominated by women. So healthcare and education, no surprise, are dominated by women, yet the wage gap is more prominent in those industries. We're not sure why.
Interesting. Well, I have to ask here, because in healthcare you tend to see female nurses, male doctors still. Is that across the board in healthcare? Are we looking specifically?
It's across the board, because they're looking at all, they're comparing, all doctors. So they look at, doctor to doctor, nurse to nurse. So it's not just.
So it's not just, a solid.
Unfortunately,
right.
no.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that really stood out as surprising to me. Women-owned businesses are not started as often as men, and they're not funded as often as male-owned businesses. Huh. There's many theories, and we had a panel of experts sort of address why we think that is. And again, it's women, it could be that women are saying, okay, how do I go get venture capital funding? Do I want to grow past that 1 million mark? What sort of complications does that bring along? Yeah. And then we don't start them up as much either, so the Women's Chamber needs to play more of a role and will play more of a role in showing women that we can do it. Yeah. I think as women, we all realize, we have those friends in our lives that really hold us accountable and tell us that we can do it. And when we set a goal, they'll help us get there. And that's really the role that I think the Women's Chamber will play in our community, where you have this group of amazing professional women that hold you accountable. I love that. You want to be a CEO? Okay, well, let's talk about how you're going to do that. I have a personal story of myself. I had wanted to be a CEO and found two wonderful mentors who are women. One was Donna Lynn, our Lieutenant Governor, and the other was Christine Bonero, CEO of United Way. And they showed me that I could do it and told me how, and got me through the interview process, and still continue to mentor me to this day. As CEOs, you obviously have issues that you need to work through, and they're incredible, and it's unlike anything else. And so that's why I feel like a women's chamber is extremely relevant, especially now, as women are sort of reaching beyond that glass ceiling and trying to reach for bigger opportunities. It's super important to have that network of women to support you.
It really is. And I think one of the unique things about women is the fact that we don't just think about this one thing. We always have 8,000 things that we're thinking about in one day, right? If I'm going to be a CEO, how's that going to affect my family? Do I have the funds to continue schooling that I may need? Do I have, there's lots that goes on into planning to become a CEO.
Yes. Yeah. It's so important, and it's important for us to see other women in those roles, to see how they're doing it differently. Right. Because I was terrified the day before I took this job. I'm a single mother. How am I going to do this? How am I going to balance everything? I still want to see my mother and spend time with her, but I also want to give 100% to this job because it's so important. I've worked my whole life for it. Right. So watching other women do it shows us that we can. And that's why I think it's more and more important that we see women step up into these roles, because we do it a little bit differently than men.
Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic topic, and we're going to continue that some more. Yeah,
looking forward to it.
Thank you. We are going to take a quick break here on Connect and Collaborate. And we do have 1 minute left. Is there anything that Donna Lynn said to you that stuck out?
Well, I think what stuck out for me with Donna is watching her speak. That's how I chose her as a mentor in the first place. And when I saw her tell her story, she talked about being a single mother of 3 children and working for Giuliani in New York City. And she talked about her personal life along with her professional life. And at the time, she was CEO of Kaiser locally. So my goodness, I mean, the fact that this woman's willing to kind of mix it all into her story showed me that I could do it too. And I think seeing someone like that at a really high position of power, willing to share their story and tell me and everyone else how she did it, is critical for us to hear.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kristen. We'll be right back. Stay with us on cobrt.com/live. Thank you so much for staying with us today on Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, and we have Kristen Blessman, the President and CEO of the Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Kristen. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So we finished the last segment talking about how women inspire other women. And so I believe you mentioned that the chamber is going to be focusing on some of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one way that we do that is we profile up-and-coming women. And so we have an event coming up. It's called the Top 25 Most Powerful Women in Business. Fantastic. And this year is the first year that we've opened it up to the community. And we really feel like it's important to expand our reach, because we've become so laser focused for us on what makes a top 25 most powerful woman. There's a lot of awards ceremonies out there, but we feel it's critical that women are thought leaders in their industry, that they make a point to mentor and help other women rise up, and that they're involved with nonprofits that serve primarily women and children. So we've gotten really laser focused on what we think it means to be a most powerful woman in Colorado. So that should be fun. And you can find all that information on our website at cwcc.org.
Absolutely. So that is the top 25 women in business. And for the first time, they're opening it up to the community.
Yes.
So anyone can nominate any other woman. That is fantastic. I think that's great. So one of the things I think that's pretty prominent in all of the conversations that we've had all week long about women in business are the struggle to go for leadership.
Right.
So what can you, representing the chamber, say about that?
Well, I think that women traditionally, they get fearful of, pursuing that top level and what that means to, kind of unbalancing the balance that we feel like we need in our life. And I think it's important for the Women's Chamber to connect women with each other to show them that it can be done. We can have it all. We just can't have it all at the same time. I have a tremendous colleague that said that, Jody Rowland with Bank of America. That's her quote. And I believe that that's true. Some weeks you're going to be really, really good in your career, and other weeks you're going to be a great mom. And sometimes that balance will slip off track. But trust me, we do work so well that everything performs as good as it possibly can. And we feel like sometimes we have to be perfect, but we can have balance. It's just, making sure that we're not so hard on ourselves. When one thing, falls off the cog, we're fine. It's okay. So I think it is important, and it's important for an organization like the Women's Chamber to connect women with each other. We're going to be starting a mentoring program in late 2018.
Okay.
And I think, finding a mentor is tricky, right? You have to go to a lot of events and watch a lot of women and men speak. And one of the things that we're going to try and do is match women with each other and make sure that, whatever the position is that you want, whether you want to be a VP of marketing or a CEO, we can find you people that can help you get there.
Oh, that's lovely. So also unique to women. Well, I guess not unique to women. I think one of the things that we're finding throughout any business is that people crave flexible work time.
Yeah.
Right? And women just tend to ask for it more because we tend to be the head of our households as well, right? We tend to be the caretaker of children and elderly. And so this flexible work time, how does that affect you?
It's interesting. We just did we showed a video from McKinsey & Company that said that women still are doing 40% of the housework, even though they're entering the workforce at, never before seen rates. And I think it's true. Women are the ones that, ask for flexibility, but truthfully, everyone wants flexibility, especially with the millennials in the workforce. If you don't have it, it's very challenging. And so I think what's going to start happening in corporate America is really looking at holding people accountable to their goals so that companies feel more open to being flexible with the workplace. And we have seen some wonderful companies locally help forge that. DaVita is one of them. Kent Theory talks about, being flexible and really encouraging and having more women in his workplace as well as on his board of directors. Sage Hospitality has a lot of flexibility for their employees. So we've got some great companies locally that are showing us the way. But I think, once again, women tend to not negotiate or ask at the beginning. And we really need to show people how and that it's okay to do that and ask for those things. And that we want to be held accountable to our goals despite, having a flexible work environment. And we can do both.
Well, in this day and age, I mean, a lot of work can be done from the internet, right?
Right.
I can easily sit on a beach in Mexico and type up all of my social media.
Well, it's so funny. I mean, I think everybody's different, right? Because I am one of those people where I don't get as much done when I'm at home as I do in the office. I crave being around people, especially I was a small business owner for a really long time, and you miss being in the office and being part of a team.
I could see that.
I think it's one of the strengths for having a chamber of commerce too. For a business owner that spends a lot of time alone or sitting at their desk alone, sometimes you want to just go connect with other people, and it makes chambers of commerce really relevant when you think about, I want to just go to that luncheon and hear that amazing leader speak.
Right.
And be around other people for a minute while I'm growing my business. So,
absolutely. Yeah. It's a great way for somebody with a small business who does work alone to, get those connections that they really need. Speaking of events and things going on, so the Colorado Women's Chamber is planning on taking more of a role with state initiatives. Let's delve into that.
It was one of the surprising things to me when I got to the chamber that we didn't have more of a social compass or sort of a voice at the state level. And not that we need a voice, because I think that our state is very friendly to women, but I think that we need to be involved more in initiatives that are coming out of the city and the state and helping if it's relevant to women. So one example that I have is Governor Hickenlooper has this great initiative to get more apprenticeships up and going.
Right.
And traditionally we don't see women doing those as often. So they don't go to be journeymen or plumbers or even start those businesses. And there's such incredible things to do, and you can get paid really well right after high school in those careers. And oftentimes if you want to go back to college, those companies will pay for you to go to college. And so really, what role can the Women's Chamber play in helping bring attention to this specifically for young girls and women? And we are going to do a pipeline event next year to profile that. Why aren't young girls going into tech? Why aren't they going into these apprenticeship and middle skills careers? And how can we encourage it as a state? So I really do want to see us play more of a role in that type of thing. And then the other opportunity that I feel like we have as a chamber is developing a social compass. And so a lot of corporations have corporate, social responsibility initiatives if you're in a bigger corporation, but small businesses don't have the bandwidth to create their own. And so one of the things that I'd like to see the Women's Chamber do is get more of our small business members, women-owned businesses involved in nonprofits locally. And of course, since we're the Women's Chamber, selfishly, I want it to be helping nonprofits that primarily serve women and children and helping them become economically self-sufficient. But I'd love to start providing programs like that for women business owners and women in corporations to get more involved in the community and help other women.
Oh, that's fantastic. So lots of great things that you're doing here. How can one become a member of this?
Well, it's very easy. You can go to our website at cwcc.org. It explains all the options and ways to get involved. But more importantly, again, I talk about building organic relationships and how important that is for women and women helping women. My preferred way of getting engaged with the chamber is to call the Chamber of Commerce and let us talk to you about your business and make sure it's a fit and make sure that we're going to help you build your business for your investment. And our phone number is 303-458-0220, and you can find that on our website as well.
Fantastic. I love that. So one of the things that I have asked a lot of women this week is about the #MeToo movement. It's kind of a touchy subject, but I feel like it's opened up a lot of doors. It's created a lot of conversation between not just women, but men and women, in the workplace. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that it's important, and what I think is most relevant about this whole movement and something that I'd love to see the Women's Chamber get involved in, not just on issues like sexual harassment or Me Too, but with all issues as they relate to women in the workplace, because there are many. Education is critical. We have to be able to have those conversations, and actually that's a strength that women have. They are not afraid to delve into touchy topics. And so I believe that if we can educate and have men tell us how they feel, and women express how that makes them feel, then we can get somewhere. But if it's taboo and we can never talk about it or we can't educate on it, then it's never going to change. And so I think the key to that is education and not being afraid to say something.
Open dialogue is always best. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much, Kristen Blessman, for being with us. And again, visit her at cwcc.org and visit us at cobrt.com to view our upcoming events and sign up for our weekly newsletter. Thank you so much.
Thank you.